Hi, I'm Erin Kavanagh,
And I'm Sam Candalor.
and we're senior chemistry majors at Carnegie Mellon and share a common interest in public health. We want to talk about how computer science plays a key role in the search for novel painkillers for combating the current opioid epidemic in the United States.
This story begins in 3400 BC Mesopotamia, when Sumerians began using opium from poppy plants. Over time, the drug spread across Europe and Asia. Opium contains morphine, codeine, and thebaine, which belong to a class of drugs called opioids. Other molecules belong to the same class.
1.
You might be familiar with the prescription drug oxycodone, the illicit drug heroin, or the overdose reversing agent naloxone, which is better known as Narcan. Opioids have an analgesic property that makes them extremely useful, but they also cause constipation and respiratory depression, and they have powerful narcotic and addictive effects. Opioids share a common ring structure, but vary in their chemical groups that make them each behave slightly differently in the body. This is why heroin is so much stronger than morphine, which is more powerful than codeine, and why naloxone reverses overdoses instead of causing them.
The American opioid crisis has become so severe that in 2017, 49,068 Americans died of opioid overdose. This is more Americans dying from opioids than car accidents. For some people, their opioid addiction begins with opioid prescriptions from pain treatment and progresses to an illicit substance use disorder. The need for novel, non-addictive painkillers has never been greater.
Since opiate painkillers are so addictive, millions of patients got hooked on the drug. And as use proliferated, many patients overdosed. In 2014, nearly 19,000 drug overdoses were linked to opiate painkillers, about 40% of all drug overdoses recorded that year.
So here's where it gets really ugly. The doctors began pulling back these prescriptions, but what that actually ended up doing is that because these painkiller addicts were already using and addicted to opioids, they just went to another opioid, heroin. People who are addicted to painkillers are 40 times as likely to be addicted to heroin. Since 2000, heroin overdoses are up by 500%. More than 10,000 people died of heroin overdoses just in 2014.
The government is finally responding to this whole problem. The Obama administration, along with local, state, and private efforts, have significantly increased funding for prevention and treatment programs. But fundamentally, doctors still need an alternative to treating chronic pain.
As chemists, we can make molecules that look similar to these opioids, but they tend to have the same problem. When opioids enter the body, they trigger multiple pathways. New drug development aims to activate the analgesic pathway, but not the beta-arrestin pathway, which is responsible for side effects. This is where computer science comes in. Researchers took a set of more than 3 million commercially available molecules and computationally docked them into a mu opioid receptor. They tested each molecule in more than 1 million orientations and strained bond angles in search of a molecule with a good physical fit and favorable electrostatic interactions.
This search produced 23 molecules that were physically tested by chemists to see how strongly they bind to the opioid receptor. The 7 highlighted molecules had the strongest binding affinities. Those 7 molecules were then screened computationally for analogs that maximize binding affinity. This means that some chemical groups were substituted with others and evaluated to see if the 7 molecules could be improved. On molecule 7 shown here, a 60-fold increase in affinity was accomplished by a computational search for an analog. As the field of viable molecules narrowed, the remaining optimized molecules were compared by maximum response, which is important because the novel molecule still needs to have a strong analgesic effect like opioids do.
This graph shows that TRV-130 does not activate the beta-arrestin pathway, meaning that in theory, it would not trigger the negative side effects that opioids do. You probably have taken a medicine at some point that has given you an unpleasant side effect. This is caused when the drug you take binds to something it isn't supposed to. This drug binds specifically enough within the binding pocket that it does not bind to other proteins in the body, thus avoiding these side effects. TRV-130 was commercialized as oliceridine by Kavanagh and granted breakthrough therapy status by the FDA in 2016, which means that the drug has expedited development process. This doesn't imply the drug is actually a breakthrough, but it does allow the FDA to grant priority review to drug candidates if preliminary clinical trials indicate the therapy might have substantial advantages over existing options for a life-threatening disease. While oliceridine has not been approved yet, it is very encouraging to see this progress.
We as chemists cannot sort through 3 million molecules efficiently. Computer science allows chemists to accelerate the drug development process in order to combat the urgent need for non-addictive painkillers. Oliceridine acts as a great example of the application of computer science to the opioid crisis, but this process of drug development could be even further extended to other medical problems, such as developing a new cancer treatment or finding a vaccine for Ebola.